My name is Alex, and up until last month, I was just another face in the crowded hallways of Westwood High. Average grades, average looks, average everything. But everything changed the day Liam, the guy I had been crushing on since freshman year, made his bet. I never thought one dare could flip my life upside down, but that day proved me spectacularly wrong. It all started in the cafeteria. I was sitting alone at the far end, pretending to focus on my notebook, while secretly stealing glances at Liam. He was surrounded by his usual crew, laughing, exuding that effortless charm that made everyone notice him. I knew he was popular, but popularity in high school wasn't just about being noticed. It was about control, about influence, about shaping what everyone else would pay attention to. And apparently, I had just become his next project. "You'd look amazing in a dress," Liam had said, leaning casually against the table near my spot, a teasing smirk playing on his lips. My heart had stopped. Me? In a dress? He wasn't serious, right? But the glint in his eye said otherwise. Before I could respond, he continued, loud enough for his friends to hear. "I bet anyone here that I could turn Alex into the hottest girl in school by next Friday. You in?" His friends erupted in laughter and cheers, some leaning forward in anticipation, others recording the moment on their phones. I felt my cheeks flush crimson. The bet. It wasn't just a joke. In that moment, I realized Liam had a power over me, a mix of fear and attraction that I couldn't shake. I wanted to deny him, to walk away and refuse, but a part of me, a dangerous, secretive part, was intrigued. I had always experimented with clothes, sometimes slipping into feminine outfits when no one was around, when the house was empty and the mirror alone. I never admitted it, never explored it publicly. But the thought of doing it for Liam, to catch his attention, sent a shiver down my spine. And so it began. My first stop was my room, where my closet hid a collection of dresses I had never dared to wear outside. Each one whispered a secret promise: freedom, excitement, danger. I selected a soft pastel dress, one that clung to my frame, but didn't scream for attention. I wanted subtlety at first, a test of how I would feel under the public gaze. The transformation itself was thrilling. I started with the basics: shaving, moisturizing, applying foundation. Each brush stroke and layer of makeup heightened my senses, made me hyper-aware of every curve and shadow. My hands trembled slightly as I brushed my hair, tying it into soft waves that framed my face. Then came the dress, the delicate fabric hugging my body. Finally, heels. Small ones, but enough to make my legs look longer, my posture different, my presence more commanding. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. There was Alex, yes, but also someone else, someone daring, someone daringly beautiful. I felt a thrill of both fear and excitement. This was no longer just secret crossdressing in the privacy of my room. This was a test, a challenge, a dare that could change everything. I practiced walking, adjusting my stance, my voice, even my gestures. By the time Liam texted, telling me to meet him at the courtyard, I felt a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation. What if I failed? What if everyone laughed? What if Liam wasn't impressed? And yet, I wanted to see the look in his eyes, the moment he realized I had taken his bet seriously. The courtyard was buzzing. Students mingled, swapped gossip, and some, curious about the rumor of Liam's latest bet, had gathered around. My heart thumped violently as I stepped into view, heels clicking softly against the concrete. Heads turned, whispers rose. And then finally Liam. He leaned casually against the school fountain, smirk in place, eyes scanning my new form. "Wow," he said, genuinely or maybe theatrically impressed. "I didn't think you had it in you." I felt a mix of pride and embarrassment. The bet was public now, and everyone's eyes were on me. But the thrill of it, the thrill of seeing Liam's expression, the curiosity, the attention, was intoxicating. Something inside me shifted. I realized that I liked this feeling, liked the idea of being noticed, being desired, even if it came with risk. From that day on, I became a project in the school's social experiment, unwittingly cast as the central figure in Liam's bet. He didn't just want me to crossdress. He wanted me to embody the perfect school queen bee, the girl everyone looked at and envied. And I was compelled to rise to the challenge. I had friends, but they had no idea. Emma, my best friend and my secret confidant, would have freaked out if she had known. She had always teased me about my secret little experiments with makeup and skirts, but nothing like this. I could feel the duality of my life stretching. Alex in my everyday boy persona, and Alex as the girl everyone would now watch, scrutinize, and possibly idolize. And the tension? Oh, it was delicious. Every step through the halls, every glance, every smirk or whisper from classmates made me acutely aware of my transformation. I was more exposed than I had ever been. And Liam? He was everywhere, pushing me, guiding me, testing me. Every compliment, every subtle critique was another thread tightening the suspense around me. By the end of the first day, I realized something important. This wasn't just a bet. It was a challenge, a crucible. If I succeeded, I could step into a new identity that I never thought possible. If I failed, well, humiliation was a terrifyingly real possibility. But I also knew something else. I couldn't turn back now. I had tasted the power of attention, the thrill of transformation, and the dangerous allure of Liam's game. So here I was, standing at the precipice of a new school life, my body and mind already adapting to this dual existence. Queen bee in training, secret crossdresser, Alex in two forms. And with Liam's bet looming, every day promised suspense, every step could be a triumph or a disaster. As I lay in bed that night, heels still aching, makeup slightly smudged from the day's practice, I couldn't stop replaying the events in my mind. I had entered the game willingly, or had I? The stakes were high, and the next week would push me further than I ever imagined. And deep down, I knew that by the end of this bet, nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed Liam's bet were a whirlwind of preparation, fear, and exhilaration. Each morning, I woke up with a strange mixture of dread and excitement, my mind racing with thoughts of how I would transform, how I would be seen, and how I would maintain my dual identity. I quickly realized that this bet wasn't just about wearing a dress. It was about stepping into a persona, an image crafted to captivate and impress, and possibly to manipulate the perceptions of everyone at school. I started small, testing the waters in private. My room became a secret laboratory where I experimented with outfits, hairstyles, and makeup techniques. I had never considered myself particularly skilled with makeup, but necessity is a powerful teacher. I watched tutorials late into the night, practicing eyeliner flicks, blending eyeshadow, and contouring my jawline to soften my masculine edges. Every morning, I woke up and looked in the mirror with a mix of anticipation and anxiety, adjusting my looks, testing which expressions made me appear confident, which poses elongated my frame, and which gestures made me feel undeniably feminine. Emma had noticed my distracted mood and occasional absent-mindedness, but I skillfully deflected her questions. Just stressed about homework, I would mutter, forcing a laugh. She had no idea that the stress was something entirely different, something exciting, scary, and transformative. The real test came the first time I tried walking through the halls fully dressed. I had chosen a soft pink dress that reached just above my knees, paired with modest heels that gave me a slight lift but weren't painful. My hair was neatly curled, and makeup accentuated my eyes without screaming for attention. I practiced walking, holding my head high, my back straight, balancing on heels that were unfamiliar to me. Each step was nerve-wracking. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and yet undeniably powerful. When I finally stepped into the hallway, I froze. Heads turned instantly. Whispers spread like wildfire. I felt dozens of eyes on me, scanning, judging, some admiring, some confused. My heart pounded, my palms sweated, but I forced myself to keep walking. I had to act natural. I had to convince myself as much as everyone else that I belonged in this skin, in this persona. Liam appeared at the far end of the corridor, smirking as he noticed my entrance. He raised a hand in casual greeting, but I saw the amusement in his eyes, the silent judgment, and the thrill of the challenge he had set. My pulse quickened, a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through me. I wanted to turn back, to escape the stares, but I pressed forward, forcing a confident sway in my hips, feeling the soft sway of the dress as I moved. By the second day, I was learning to anticipate the reactions. Some students were kind, offering compliments, small smiles, subtle nods of approval. Others were cruel, whispering behind my back or sneaking photos, trying to capture the experiment in action. The tension was relentless, but it also became addictive. I found myself craving the attention, the thrill of walking through the halls as a figure both admired and scrutinized. At home, the transformation was even more intense. Each evening, I would carefully select an outfit, layer on makeup, and perfect my hair. I experimented with accessories, delicate earrings, subtle necklaces, and even nail polish. I had never felt so meticulous about my appearance, so consumed by the desire to perfect my look. But the thrill came not just from the appearance, it was in the act of transformation itself. The brush against my skin, the tightening of the dress around my waist, the click of heels on the floor, they all reminded me of the duality I now inhabited. Emma still didn't know, but I began confiding in my journal, writing about the fears, the shame, and the exhilaration. I questioned my motives. Was I doing this to impress Liam, to win his bet, or because a part of me genuinely enjoyed the transformation? The lines blurred. Each day, the persona I was creating, Alex as the queen bee, started to merge with the person I had always hidden inside. School events became new challenges. I had to maintain poise, charm, and confidence in public. A simple lunch period was now a stage, and I was both performer and performer watcher, constantly aware of the audience around me. Every glance in my direction, every comment, every giggle heightened the suspense, making each interaction a delicate dance. Then came the first major test, the pep rally. It was loud, chaotic, and filled with students who had already heard rumors about Liam's bet. I stood backstage, heels clicking nervously against the floor, adjusting my skirt, smoothing my hair, my fingers trembling. The moment I stepped into the gymnasium, I felt a surge of adrenaline. All eyes turned toward me. I felt a rush of panic, the fear of being exposed mingling with the thrill of being admired. Liam was there, smirking as expected, his friends whispering behind him. He didn't need to say anything. His gaze alone was a challenge, a constant reminder that my performance wasn't just optional, it was required. I smiled, raised my head, and walked into the center of the gym, allowing the whispers and glances to wash over me. The sensation was intoxicating. I realized, with a mixture of shock and delight, that I was beginning to enjoy this attention, this transformation, this dangerous game of perception. Yet with every high came anxiety. I had to be constantly vigilant, aware of Emma potentially discovering the secret, of classmates photographing or recording me, of Liam's expectations escalating with each passing day. Every small misstep, smudged lipstick, wobbly heel, an awkward gesture, felt like it could undo everything. The suspense was relentless. The internal struggle was constant. I loved the feeling of being admired, the thrill of stepping into a feminine persona, the way people now treated me differently. But I also feared judgment, rejection, and humiliation. My identity felt split in two, and sometimes I wondered if I could ever reconcile the Alex everyone knew with the Alex Liam had forced me to become. Despite the fear, I pushed myself further. I experimented with hairstyles I had never dared to try, makeup colors that were bold and expressive, outfits that drew attention. Each transformation made me feel more alive, but also more vulnerable. The stakes were escalating, and the bet wasn't just a game anymore. It was becoming a defining moment in my life. Every interaction with Liam intensified the suspense. He would casually suggest changes, remark on my appearance, or challenge me to walk, speak, and behave more convincingly. Each comment was a test, each smirk a reminder of the control he held. I began to feel like a marionette, every step and gesture choreographed, yet paradoxically, I was enjoying it. The fear of being caught, of failing, only made the thrill stronger. By the end of the week, I had fully embraced the persona. I had learned to move gracefully in heels, to carry myself with confidence, to manipulate glances and gestures to command attention. But the internal conflict remained. I loved the power and attention, yet I feared the consequences. Liam's bet had transformed me physically, socially, and emotionally, and the tension of maintaining this delicate balance kept me on edge. The stage was set for the climax. The school was buzzing with anticipation, whispers of my transformation spreading through every hallway. Liam's bet had become public knowledge, and I was at the center of a social experiment that had spiraled out of control. Every glance, every whisper, every step I took was a test of poise, confidence, and secrecy. And deep down, I knew one thing: the week ahead would push me further than I had ever imagined. The stakes were high, the suspense unrelenting, and the thrill, both terrifying and exhilarating, was far from over. The tension reached its peak the following week. Every glance in the hallways felt like a spotlight, every whisper a test. My transformation wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a performance under constant scrutiny. I had to be perfect. Every detail mattered. The sway of my hips, the tilt of my chin, the curl of a strand of hair. One misstep could unravel everything I had carefully constructed. It started with the announcement of the school talent showcase. Liam casually mentioned it, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "I bet you'd totally rock it as yourself," he said with a smirk. The implication was obvious. He wanted me to appear fully as Alex, the queen bee, in front of the entire student body. My heart sank, but I felt a thrill race through me. This was the ultimate test. I spent the next 2 days preparing. My room became a frenzy of outfits, makeup, and rehearsals. I tried on dresses, skirts, and heels, practicing movements in front of my mirror until I could walk confidently without wobbling. I experimented with hairstyles, finally settling on soft curls that framed my face. Makeup became an art, bold enough to catch attention under the bright gymnasium lights, but subtle enough to appear natural. Emma noticed my absences and my preoccupation, but I had become an expert at deception. Just stressed about school events, I would murmur, feigning concern about homework and deadlines. She smiled and nodded, unaware that my stress was something far more exhilarating and terrifying. The day of the showcase arrived. I stepped into the gymnasium early, the room buzzing with anticipation. Students were setting up, chairs arranged in rows, lights bright and glaring. I felt a mix of excitement and panic. Every noise seemed amplified: the shuffle of feet, the whisper of clothes, the click of heels against the floor. I adjusted my dress one last time and smoothed a curl into place. Liam appeared, leaning casually against the wall, his smirk wider than ever. "You ready to steal the show, Queen Bee?" he teased. My stomach twisted, but I forced a confident smile. "Of course," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. The first few acts passed in a blur, students singing, dancing, performing skits. Each act heightened my nerves, and I felt the weight of the impending moment pressing down on me. Finally, it was my turn. The announcer called my name, and I walked onto the stage, the bright lights making me squint. Every eye in the gymnasium was on me, and I felt both exposed and powerful. I began my performance, a carefully choreographed routine I had practiced in secret. Each movement was deliberate, every smile calculated. I felt a rush as the audience reacted, whispers and gasps filling the air. Liam watched intently, his smirk never fading. This was the moment of truth. Would I crumble under pressure, or would I fully embrace Alex, the queen bee? Halfway through, disaster struck. My heel caught the edge of the stage, and I stumbled, catching myself just in time. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. My heart pounded, my palms sweating. I felt the fabric of my dress tighten uncomfortably as I regained my balance, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. But I pushed forward, refusing to let the moment defeat me. Each step became more confident, more deliberate, until the initial stumble felt like a distant memory. The audience was captivated. Friends, classmates, and even teachers watched, mesmerized by my performance. I felt a strange exhilaration, a rush of adrenaline that mingled with fear. Every movement, every glance, every smile became a high-stakes gamble. I was performing not just for them, but for myself, testing the boundaries of my identity and courage. Then the twist, a surprise announcement. Liam's sister, who had been quietly observing from the side, suddenly appeared on stage. "Let's see if the queen bee can handle a real challenge," she said, holding up a small box with an enigmatic smile. My stomach sank. What had she planned? The suspense was suffocating. She opened the box, revealing a pair of high-heeled shoes, significantly taller than what I had been wearing. "These," she said, "are for you. Walk to the end of the stage without falling, and you'll truly earn your title." My heart raced. These heels were a nightmare. But backing down wasn't an option. I took a deep breath, sliding my feet into the stilettos. Pain shot through my arches immediately, and I felt my balance teetering precariously. The audience leaned in, sensing the tension. I began to walk, each step a careful calculation. My legs wobbled, my dress swayed, and I felt every eye on me. Halfway across the stage, a loose strand of hair fell into my face, obstructing my vision. I flinched, nearly tipping over. Panic surged, but I pushed forward, the thrill of risk mingling with the exhilaration of control. When I finally reached the end of the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. I felt a rush of triumph, the validation of my efforts washing over me. Liam's sister smirked, impressed despite herself. I had done it. I had claimed the title, not just for the bet, but for myself. Yet the climax wasn't over. As I stepped down, I heard a gasp from the side. Emma had arrived unexpectedly. She had seen everything, her eyes wide with shock and a mix of emotions I couldn't decipher. The exhilaration of my triumph collided with a fresh wave of panic. Had she seen too much? Would she understand or judge? The suspense was unbearable. I froze, the weight of the moment pressing down. Every step I had taken, every risk I had embraced, had led to this, the confrontation between my secret persona and the reality of my life. Emma's gaze lingered on me, a silent question in her eyes. I wanted to speak, to explain, but words failed me. The thrill, the fear, the excitement, all of it converged in a single heartbeat. And then, footsteps behind me. Liam's friends, intrigued by the performance, were approaching, cameras raised. The crowd murmured, some whispering questions, others laughing. I realized I was at the center of a social storm, my secret identity fully exposed, yet somehow commanding attention and admiration simultaneously. The gymnasium seemed to shrink around me, the lights blinding, the applause deafening, and the reality terrifying. I stood frozen, caught between triumph and vulnerability, between the persona I had cultivated and the fear of exposure. Every glance, every whisper, every heartbeat reminded me that nothing would ever be the same. I had stepped fully into the persona of the queen bee, embraced the thrill of transformation, and now faced the consequences of visibility, scrutiny, and social power. The suspense was palpable. What would Emma think? How would Liam react? Would my classmates accept this new version of me? Or would I be ridiculed, humiliated, or worse? The stage was set for the final act, a confrontation that would define everything, my identity, my confidence, and my future in the school hierarchy. Every choice, every step, and every word from this moment on carried weight, and the tension was unrelenting. The gymnasium buzzed with energy, the applause fading but still echoing in my ears. I stood frozen, heels digging into the polished floor, dress swaying, and hair slightly disheveled from the whirlwind of performance. Every pair of eyes in the room seemed to pierce me, but none more than Emma's. She had arrived quietly, unnoticed until the end, and now her gaze was locked on me, a mix of shock, disbelief, and something I couldn't quite read. I wanted to run, to disappear into the crowd, to strip away the persona of the queen bee and retreat into the safety of my normal life. But that would undo everything. The confidence, the thrill, the audacity of stepping fully into this new identity. My chest pounded, not just from the heels but from the weight of exposure. Liam sidled up beside me, grinning. "Well, what do you think? Not bad for a bet, huh?" His tone was teasing, but there was an undeniable admiration beneath it. I smiled weakly, unsure if I was exhilarated or terrified, or both. Before I could respond, a whisper rippled through the audience. A few students had noticed the small camera peeking from Liam's backpack, the one he had set up earlier to record my performance. I felt my stomach drop. Not only had I performed in front of the school, but now it was being documented, possibly to be shared online, forever linking my secret identity to the public eye. Emma stepped closer, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Alex, is this you?" Her voice was soft but trembled with an emotion I couldn't name. Panic surged through me. I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, but words caught in my throat. How do you justify something so private, so thrilling, so terrifying, to someone who didn't know the depth of it? A tap on my shoulder made me jump. It was Liam's sister, holding the tiny box that had once contained the impossibly tall heels. She smirked knowingly. "Looks like you handled the challenge, but are you ready for the next one?" Her words hung in the air, teasing yet threatening, suggesting that this was far from over. My eyes darted between Emma, Liam, and the crowd. The applause had quieted to murmurs, the energy shifting from admiration to curiosity. Every face seemed to question, to judge, and yet some looked impressed. I felt the precarious balance of power in my hands, the duality of vulnerability and dominance, thrill and fear. Emma finally spoke again, her voice low and deliberate. "I don't know what to say." Her hesitation was deafening. The room seemed to shrink, the pressure mounting with every passing second. "Alex, or whoever you are, I need to understand." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The heels dug into my feet, the dress clinging tightly, my hair a mess from the performance, but none of that mattered now. It was the question, the uncertainty, that made my pulse race. Could I risk revealing everything? Could I show her the truth of who I was, the secret I had carried for weeks, for months, for years? From the side, Liam's friends whispered, some laughing, some leaning in for a closer look. The cameras clicked, capturing every moment. My dual life, the thrill of transformation, the tension of secrecy, was now laid bare, hanging in the balance between revelation and concealment. Emma took a step closer, reaching out as if to touch my arm. The world narrowed to that single gesture. I could feel the weight of anticipation, the collective breath of the audience holding steady, waiting to see how I would respond. And then a sharp sound. My heel had caught on a loose floorboard, tipping me slightly forward. Gasps echoed through the gym. I steadied myself, heart racing, aware that every eye was on me again. The suspense was unbearable. Would I recover gracefully, or would this stumble mark the end of my carefully crafted persona? I managed a shaky laugh, trying to regain composure. I'm okay, I murmured, though my voice betrayed the tension gripping me. Emma's eyes flickered with concern and something else. Curiosity? Admiration? Confusion? Liam's sister leaned closer, her smirk widening. "This is just the beginning," she whispered in a voice only I could hear. "The bet, the challenge, it's not over. Not by a long shot." The murmur of the crowd swelled again, a mix of applause, whispers, and cameras clicking. My heart pounded in rhythm with the chaos around me. I realized then that my life had shifted irreversibly. The thrill, the fear, the exposure, it had all become real. I wasn't just playing a role anymore. I was living it, and there was no turning back. Emma's hand hovered near mine, hesitant, a question unspoken. The air was thick with anticipation, the gymnasium a cauldron of suspense and curiosity. Every heartbeat felt amplified, every glance a test of courage. I had faced the bet, the performance, the challenge, but the final verdict remained in her hands. And then footsteps from behind. A new presence unannounced, moving through the crowd. I didn't recognize them, but their approach was deliberate. The suspense ratcheted higher, a new layer of uncertainty cutting through the exhilaration and fear. I froze, my mind racing. The queen bee persona, the thrill of crossdressing, the social power. All of it teetered on the edge of revelation. Who had arrived? What did they want? And most importantly, would this final twist expose everything, or push me further into my bold, new identity? The gym fell silent for a split second, everyone sensing the tension. My breath caught in my throat, every nerve on edge. The moment had arrived, the point of no return.